What's up, you guys? It's Marty. I am very excited to finally be making this video. It's been a long time coming. I have finally found the time to sit down, organize my thoughts, and write out kind of a detailed summary and synopsis of essentially the topic of this video, which was leaving PA school for a year. Long story short, after my didactic year, so PA school is usually 2 years. You have your first year, which is a year of didactic training, classroom work, very intense. And then after that, you have a year of jumping into direct patient care, which is really where they say where the learning begins. So, but I took a leave of absence between that first and second year of PA school. And you know, it was kind of a big deal. It's very uncommon. I don't want to say uncommon, but it's less common for people to take leave of absences during PA school. So I wanted to finally sit down, make a video, because I know a lot of people have been interested in my specific journey and the series of events and circumstances that led to that decision to leave PA school for a year. So let's dive right into it. This is actually my first real YouTube video that I'm launching for my PA school healthcare vlog that I'm starting. So if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, I really appreciate the support. And for anyone that's thinking about going to PA school, I did author a book last year. It's called Becoming a PhD, Your Guide to America's #1 Profession. So please check out the link to that book on Amazon. Definitely appreciate the support. That was a year in the making writing that book. I put a lot of heart and soul into that, and I have a lot of personal stories about everything for my specific journey to get into PA school. So hopefully people can find that helpful. So jumping right into it. So I went to PA school, oh gosh, almost 7 years ago now is when I got my acceptance letter. Super exciting. You know, the journey to PA school is long, arduous, and requires a lot of time, energy, and money. So super excited to get that acceptance letter. And PA school was one of those things that they'll tell you is going to be hard. No one keeps it a secret. They tell you from the get-go, this is going to be hard, this is going to be challenging, this is going to suck. So don't sign up for it unless you know that going into it. And PA school definitely holds true to how they sell it. One of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life was my PA school training, and rightfully so, right? We get the privilege to take care of patients, and you would expect that would involve just a very rigorous, challenging curriculum and training. So I tried to prepare myself, you know, the best I could for that. You know, I took a 5-year gap year between when I graduated from undergrad before I went back into PA school. I took the time to save up as much money as I could to, you know, reduce any amount of debt that I could, because, you know, finances is a huge stressor for a lot of people, not just with PA training, but just life in general. So I tried to be proactive and do everything I could to just lighten the burden, so that I could just make school, make studying my main focus and try not to worry about other life stressors. So I got to PA school, and you know, my first semester in my PA training was anatomy and physiology and H&P, which is history and physical exam, where you essentially practice, you know, taking a history and doing a physical exam on a standardized patient. So the first semester was, you know, okay. It was a lighter credit load, still very challenging. You know, one of the things that is very challenging about PA school is, you know, you have to maintain a certain GPA. You have to score a certain percentage point on your test. If you fail to do that, you can get dismissed from PA school, which is very stressful, because for most people, getting into PA school is years, if not a decade of work. And so to think that all of that could just end in, you know, dismissal, I think is one of the huge driving factors of why PA school is so stressful. It's just the stakes are very high. So that first semester was challenging, but, you know, survived. But just thinking about how our credit load was about to go up even further from that. It definitely made me a little nervous going into that fall semester, and rightfully so. So after the summer semester, we call it the big three, is what you start in the fall. So you have your clinical medicine, diagnostic medicine, and pharmacology. And this is where you jump into the different systems of medicine, so cardiology, gastroenterology, pulmonology, and it's very, very rigorous. It is a insurmountable of knowledge that you have to take in, retain, not just for tests, but also to create a knowledge base to go into your clinical year and apply that to. And I think that is one of the other biggest challenges of PA school, which is different than your undergrad training. A lot of us just study to take tests, and then we essentially dump that knowledge from our brain. But the challenge part of PA school is not only is it just a ton of information that you have to retain and take a test for, but then you have to find a way to remember it all so that when you go into your clinical year, you can be competent, because you are expected to remember and know a lot of what you learned in your didactic year. That's very important for clinicals. So as time went on, I found myself just getting really, really kind of overwhelmed. My day-to-day kind of schedule was wake up at 6 a.m., study for an hour or two before school, and then go to school, sit there for 6, 7, 8 hours of lecture, try to get the most out of lecture I could, which is a whole nother topic in of itself. I think the whole classroom model of PA training is a little outdated, but that's another soapbox for a different video. But anyway, 6, 7, 8 hours of lecture, and then come home, and then essentially for the rest of the day, the rest of the night, study until 10, 11, sometimes midnight, and then go to bed and do it all over the next day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7 days a week, weekends. So you can imagine that can get very, very tiresome. And I think what was the biggest factor for me is, prior to PA school, I've always, had good work-life balance. I've always prioritized, working out, staying fit, spending time with friends as a way to kind of balance the stressors of life, work and school. And I really just lost that balance when I got to PA school. It was all work and no respite. So over time, I started to see my mental health really take a toll. It affected my sleep. I was not getting good sleep, and that just kind of spiraled everything out of control. Fortunately, I was able to perform well academically. I was focusing all of my, mental energy and stamina into my grades, because I knew that was the most important thing, because that was the deciding factor of whether I stayed or whether I went. Again, getting back to that's one of the most stressful things about PA school is the fact that you can get dismissed at any time if you're not performing well. So I put all of my mental energy into tests and making sure that I was meeting my PA benchmarks for school. But unfortunately, everything else in my life was crumbling to pieces. My mental health, my emotional health, my social health, my physical health. I just wasn't doing anything except studying. And throughout that fall semester, I saw myself just kind of, again, spiraling and just going down and down and down and down, and to the point where I knew I was becoming depressed. I was having a hard time, just having basic conversations, being able to focus on anything other than studying. I had a hard time telling myself it was okay to take breaks and go see my friends, and it was just very, very, very stressful. And then kind of the things that were kind of red flags that once I started getting to the spring semester, I knew things were getting bad when, I would just be in a daze. I would be on the bus home from school and I would completely zone out, and then 10 stops past where I was supposed to get off the bus, I would come back and realize that I had missed my bus stop and then had to turn around and go back. So I could tell just mentally I was in a really bad place, and I knew I was in a bad place. I felt depressed. So that's when I knew things were starting to get a little bit more serious. So I came to the realization that I had to start figuring out kind of a plan. I knew that going into clinical year in the mental state that I was in would be very, very challenging and would pose a huge risk, not only to getting the most out of my clinical year, but being able to be a good student, being able to be fully present and, engage with my preceptors. And so I was just really worried about how the stress and everything that I was under would affect my performance. And that really started to weigh down on me. It was challenging because at that point, it feels like PA school is either do or die. It's like either you can do this or you can't do it. And if you can't do it, then you just have to quit, which again is super stressful because again, it takes such a long time just to get to that point, not just time, but energy and money. Like at that point I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on tuition so far. And just to see that all come to an end, it felt like a road that I did not want to go down unless I absolutely had to. But I also knew that continuing on the path that I was on was also unsustainable. And, a shout out to my med school colleagues, the physicians in training, because I can't imagine, 2 years of PA school was as hard as it was, but thinking about 4 years of med school and then residency, I just don't know how you guys do it. So props to you guys. So started exploring, what my options were, and started looking at the policies that my PA school had in place. And one of them was taking a leave of absence, and, really kind of struggling with myself to even think like, am I even worthy of taking a leave of absence just for, what I'm going through? And I think, this is, something that the reason why I'm making this video is because I think, anyone has gotten to the point where they get into nursing school or PA school or NP or, medical school. I think we're all high achieving individuals, and it's really hard for us to ask for help. And I think a lot of us internalize it. And so I think a lot of people can empathize and relate to just, what I went through personally, which was, telling myself like, and feeling guilty about like, am I even worthy of a leave of absence? Because, at that point, what I understood, people that took leave of absence had like super crazy life circumstances, like diagnosis of cancer or the death of a spouse or a child or something, really, things that are super, super substantial. So I had a lot of guilt just kind of getting to the point of even feeling like I would be able to, request a leave of absence from my faculty. But, after kind of weeks and weeks and weeks of reflection, it all came down to, what is the ultimate goal of what I'm trying to achieve? And, the whole goal of PA training is to become a PA, and the whole goal of becoming a PA was to help people. And, if I cannot be a good healthcare practitioner for my future patients, well then what is the point of all of this? And so I realized that if continuing down the trajectory that I was on would ultimately lead me, to a place where I would probably not be as successful as I would want to be, then totally it was worth, asking my faculty for a leave of absence so that I could get to a place where I knew that I would be able to be the PA that I wanted to be and provide the healthcare and the quality of healthcare for my future patients. So I wrote a letter to my program director and the faculty requesting a leave of absence. And I don't want to say like they were like, yes, absolutely. Like a lot of the PA faculty had a lot of concerns. Taking a leave of absence, how long do you want to leave for? A month, a semester, 2 semesters, a year? And then also, what are you going to do to ensure that when you come back, are you going to be ready to go into whatever next stage of your training that is? And the way I kind of envisioned it, I would, finish didactic year and then take an entire year off and then go back into clinicals with the next year's class. So just a lot of concerns from faculty about how I would stay competent on everything that I had studied so far and all the didactic requirements so that I could be successful in clinical year, because there's a lot of risk letting the student just leave for a year and what's going to happen. And are they going to come back completely, just not ready to go into clinical year? So I don't want to say it was like a complete yes, absolutely. No, they had a lot of questions, and there was a lot of communication that went back and forth about how I would ensure that, if I took this leave of absence, I would come back ready to take on the next steps. But, after having all of those important conversations with my faculty, they came to the conclusion that what I was asking for was reasonable, and what felt good for me is, kind of explaining that this isn't the first time a student has, been in the same type of situation that I've, been in. So they signed off and let me take my year, my leave of absence. And so, like I was saying, I finished, this all happened in the spring semester. I ended up finishing my spring didactic term, and then there's like the spring break, and then everyone takes 3 weeks off, and then they come back for summer semester and then go into their first rounds of clinicals. So after my spring semester is when my leave of absence started. So it was, again, kind of a huge process to get to that point, but in hindsight, I'm really glad I made that decision. I often, even though I'm like, 7 years out from all of this, I look back and I think about what would have happened if, I hadn't have made that request. And I know it's hard to know, but I think I really would have struggled in clinical year. I would not have been fully present. I wouldn't have been eager to take advantage of all of the learning opportunities that present themselves in clinical year. I mean, it's endless opportunity to learn every single day. Clinical year is really, again, where the learning starts. You get thrown into clinics and hospitals and, med surg floors and ORs, and, unlike didactic year, which is very structured, you come in and there's a list of what we're going to learn today. You walk into your clinical year, and every day is, endless potential for what you can learn. You're never going to know what's going to come in the door. And really how much you get out of clinical year is how much enthusiasm and, your eagerness to, ask to see different cases and be a part of certain patient care experiences. And, thinking about just when you're depressed, the number one thing you want to do is like crawl into a corner and hide. I was worried that going into a clinical year, I just would have done the bare minimum and not gotten like the full experience that clinical year offers. And so many people say this, like they wish they could go back to clinical year, because really it's amazing. You get to do patient care, but really the focus just is on learning. You don't have to deal with all of the other administrative and bureaucratic tasks that are a part of being in healthcare and in the modern age. So in hindsight, I think I would not have gotten the most out of my clinical year, and I wouldn't have built the relationships that I did with my preceptors and the health system and got the job offers that I would have if I would have went in with just a really horrible, depressed state of mind. So really just to this day, I'm really thankful to my program for giving me the opportunity to do what I felt I needed to do for myself and my career. So I'm forever thankful to them. And I know that, not every PA program would have been as accommodating. So shout out to my program, UW-Madison, great program, one of the first PA programs in the country, and just have a phenomenal faculty there that really wants every student to succeed. So very thankful for that. So what I think I'm going to do, this video is getting long. I'm going to do a timeout here, and then the next video, part 2, will be diving into the actual year, my year off. Again, a huge risk for someone taking a whole year off from their PA program. Again, there's a lot of information that you need to retain, and so the second video will kind of be like what I did, how I planned out the year, how I made sure I was holding myself accountable, so that when I did rematriculate back into PA school the following year, the following summer, I was ready. So that'll be part 2 of this video series. Again, given where this video, the length is, I think it'd be best just to do that in a second video. So just wanted to say thanks for tuning in. I'm really excited to share my experiences as a PA with all of you. Just kind of start a discourse for multiple topics in healthcare. It's never been a more exciting time to be in medicine. You know, the state of healthcare in this country, I think, is going to be at the top of, you know, not just political debates, but, you know, conversations on so many different levels. So I'm just excited to be a part of these conversations, you know, bring up some discourse, have some great conversations, and just kind of give you my perspective as a physician assistant, as a PA in this country. So thanks for checking in. Again, check out my links down below, give me a like, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, take care, everyone.